Princess Lyra moved slowly along the rocky cliffs outside the royal city of Zephora. She was smaller than most Zephyrans, and her legs did not carry her as fast as they should. That was why she often walked alone, away from the noisy courts and strict lessons. The palace was full of rules, and Lyra had never fit in. Her disability made her weaker than the others in the royal family. The trials, the ceremonies, the political meetings, she could barely participate. Yet Lyra had one gift the others could not touch: her curiosity. She loved the unknown, the secrets hidden in the forests, the valleys, and the cliffs of Zephora. Today, as she walked farther than she had ever dared, a strange sight caught her eye: a glint of silver among the rocks. As she drew closer, Lyra's sharp violet eyes widened. A small craft, unlike any Zephyran ship, lay crumpled against the cliff. Smoke rose in thin streams, and strange symbols glowed faintly on the metal surface. Lyra's heart beat faster. Humans were forbidden. Legends said they were primitive, dangerous, unpredictable. No one had ever seen one near Zephora. But there was no time to think about danger. The craft's door was slightly open, and inside, she saw him, a human. He was small, like a Zephyran child with pale skin and dark hair. He lay on the floor, breathing heavily, blood staining his shirt. One of his legs was bent at an awkward angle. Lyra's mind raced. She knew the rules. Royals were not supposed to leave the palace without guards, and certainly never to help aliens from forbidden planets. Yet she could not leave him here. She stepped forward carefully. "Are you alive?" she asked. The human stirred. His dark eyes opened, clouded with pain and confusion. He tried to move, groaning. "Help. Please," he whispered in a strange voice. Lyra swallowed hard. The words were hard to understand, but the meaning was clear. She had no choice. "Come with me," she said gently, extending a hand. He took it with difficulty. His hand was warm but trembling. Together they moved slowly to a safer spot behind the rocks. Lyra helped him sit down and examined his injuries. His leg was broken and his arm had cuts. She had studied medicine at the palace, enough to know basic treatment. She pulled some clean cloth from her satchel and began to bind his wounds. The human flinched at first but did not resist. "What happened?" Lyra asked. "Ship. Crash," he whispered, voice weak. "Need. Fix. Go home." Lyra nodded. She did not know where home was or how she could help him get there. But she knew one thing: she could not leave him to die. She worked carefully, keeping her voice soft. As she wrapped the last bandage, the human looked at her. His eyes, though tired and pained, were full of curiosity. "You. Different," he said. Lyra blinked. "Different? How?" "You. Help," he said. "Others. Not like you." The words surprised her. She had always felt different, weaker, less capable than the rest of her family. Yet here someone saw her differently. She smiled faintly, feeling a warmth she had never felt before. They stayed like that for hours. The sun moved across the sky, and the shadows grew long. Lyra shared water and food she had brought, and the human, whom she learned was named Ethan, tried to explain where he came from. His words were slow and broken, but Lyra understood enough to know that he was far from home and alone. Night fell. The cliffs were quiet except for the wind and the distant hum of Zephyran machinery. Lyra realized she could not stay here forever. She needed to hide him better, somewhere safe until she could decide what to do next. She guided him carefully through a narrow path that led to a hidden cave she had discovered long ago. The cave was small but secure, with enough space to sit and rest. Lyra helped him lie down on a soft bed of moss she had gathered. "You stay here," she said. "No one must find you." Ethan nodded, exhaustion heavy on his face. "Thank you," he whispered. "Human. Help." Lyra sat beside him, thinking. She had always felt powerless in her family. Her disability kept her out of important decisions and trials. But now, for the first time, she could make a choice on her own. She could help this human. She could be brave in a way her family had never allowed. As she watched him sleep, a thought formed in her mind. Humans were strange, fragile creatures, yet they had something Zifferans often lacked: adaptability, courage, and heart. This human, small and weak, had survived a crash where his ship was destroyed. That was more than many Zifferans could do. Lyra smiled faintly. Perhaps humans were not the primitive creatures her parents had feared. Perhaps they had qualities that even the most advanced Zifferan could not understand. Suddenly, a distant sound made her tense. Footsteps on the cliff above. Royal guards. Someone was coming. Lyra's heart raced. If they discovered Ethan, he would be captured or worse, killed. She had to act fast. She whispered, "Stay quiet. I will protect you." The guards passed the entrance of the cave, talking among themselves, unaware of the human hidden inside. Lyra waited until the sound faded. Only then did she exhale. She knew the danger was far from over, but for now, Ethan was safe. As she settled down beside him again, she felt something she had never felt before: hope. She was a disabled princess in a strict, traditional world, yet here she was, holding the potential for something greater than herself. A human, an outsider, could change everything. Lyra looked at Ethan and thought quietly, maybe this is the start of a legacy no one in Zyphora could have imagined. The stars shone above the cliff, silent witnesses to a secret alliance forming between a princess who had been underestimated and a human who had survived the impossible. Neither knew what the future would bring, but both felt the spark of something new, something powerful. And so, in the quiet of the forbidden cliffs, the princess and the human began a journey that would challenge traditions, defy expectations, and maybe change the galaxy. The next morning, the sun rose over the cliffs of Zyphora, painting the sky with colors Lyra had never seen from the palace windows. She moved quietly through the cave, careful not to wake Ethan. He had slept most of the night, but when he stirred, his dark eyes opened slowly, blinking against the light. "Morning?" he asked weakly, his voice hoarse. "Morning," Lyra said softly. "You rested, that's good." She handed him a small cup of water. Ethan drank carefully, his eyes studying her as though he had never seen anyone like her before. "You, Ziphoran?" he asked. "Yes," she replied a little cautiously. "I am a princess." Ethan raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Princess? Helps human. Not usual?" Lyra smiled faintly. "No, it is not usual. That is why no one must know." They spent the morning in silence, Lyra tending to his wounds and making sure he was comfortable. She had expected him to be weak or scared, but Ethan surprised her. Even with a broken leg and cuts across his arms, he showed curiosity, asking questions about Zyphora, her life, and the cliffs surrounding the palace. Why here?" Ethan asked suddenly, pointing to her with a weak hand. Lyra hesitated. She had never spoken of her feelings, even to her closest aides, let alone a human. "I like to explore the palace. It is not enough for me. I feel trapped sometimes." Ethan nodded slowly, as though he understood. "Trapped? I know. My home, gone. Ship crash. No one knows me." Lyra looked at him, surprised. Despite their differences, she felt a connection forming. He had faced danger and survived. He was small, human, and fragile, yet he had a strength of spirit that she admired. "Maybe. Humans are stronger than we think," she said quietly, almost to herself. Ethan looked at her and gave a faint smile. "Maybe Ziphoran learned something." For the next few days, Lyra visited him in secret. She brought food, water, and supplies, and they shared stories. She told him about her life in the palace, about the trials she could not attend, and the lessons she could not fully learn because of her disability. Ethan, in turn, described his home planet in fragments, how humans lived, how they built machines, and how they solved problems with imagination rather than sheer strength. One afternoon, as Lyra helped Ethan move a small device he had found, in the wreck she noticed his fingers were nimble, precise, and patient. He studied the broken gadget, turning it in different ways, then nodded to himself. "I can fix," he said confidently. Within hours he had repaired a simple mechanism that Lyra had not understood. She watched in awe. A human, he was small and different, but his mind worked in ways she had never seen among her own people. You're clever," she said. Ethan shrugged. "Humans survive. Think fast." Lyra smiled. She realized something important. His strength was not in his muscles or in speed. It was in his mind, his creativity, and his ability to adapt. That was something even the most advanced Xiferans could not match. As days passed, the bond between them grew. Lyra began to teach him basic concepts of Xiferan culture, language, and technology. In return, Ethan showed her simple tricks humans use to solve problems, how to improvise, how to see things differently, and even small exercises that helped her move faster despite her disability. One evening, Lyra sat beside him watching the stars. "I wish I could show my parents. I want them to see that humans, maybe not so weak." Ethan studied her. "Parents, they listen?" Lyra shook her head. "No, they are strict. They follow old rules. Humans are forbidden. But I want to try." Ethan frowned slightly. "Danger? If they find me, punishment?" "Yes," Lyra admitted. "But maybe worth it. If they understand. Humans can help. Maybe humans can change things." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden noise outside. Lyra froze. The palace of Zephora gleamed under the twin suns, its towers reaching high into the sky like crystal spears. Inside, the grand halls were filled with nobles, advisors, and guards. Lyra's heart pounded as she walked through the corridors, her steps slow but determined. Today she would bring Ethan to her parents. It was the first time she had openly defied the rules, and she hoped it would not be her last. Ethan followed carefully, leaning on a small cane he had fashioned to help his broken leg. His eyes were wide as he looked at the palace, taking in the golden floors, the glowing walls, and the strange devices that moved on their own. Everything was new to him, yet he seemed calm, trusting Lyra completely. "This big," he said quietly. "Yes," Lyra whispered. "But be careful. Do not touch anything. No one must see us yet." They reached the inner chamber where King Therion and Queen Selira held court. Lyra took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Father, Mother, I have someone to show you," she said, her voice trembling slightly, but firm. The king and queen looked at her in surprise. Lyra had rarely spoken out in court, let alone brought anyone uninvited. "Princess Lyra," King Therion said, his tone sharp. "What is the meaning of this intrusion?" Lyra swallowed her fear. "Father, Mother, this is Ethan. He is human." The words caused a ripple of shock through the court. Guards straightened and several nobles whispered nervously. Humans were forbidden. Their existence near Zephora was considered dangerous, even criminal. "Human?" Queen Selira's voice was cold. "You bring a primitive alien into our palace? Do you have any idea what laws you break?" Lyra nodded. "I know, but he is not what the stories say. He is clever, brave, and kind. Please hear me. He could help us. He could change things for the better." The court murmured, some in disbelief, others in fear. A few nobles scoffed. "This is madness," one said. "How could a human, weak, fragile, change anything?" Ethan stepped forward slowly, leaning on his cane. His dark eyes met the king's. I mean no harm. I help, he said in his broken but clear voice. I survive. Crash. I want help. The king's eyes narrowed. He rose from his throne, towering over the small human. And why should we believe you? Humans are unpredictable, dangerous. You could bring disaster to our people. Lyra stepped between them. Father, please. Look at what he has done. He survived where no one else could. He has intelligence we have never seen. He helped me, and he could help Zephora. Queen Selira shook her head. This is a test of your judgment, Lyra. You are risking everything for someone from a forbidden species. Do you understand the consequences? Lyra met her mother's gaze. I do, but I also know what is right. I cannot ignore him. I cannot ignore what he can do. Please, give him a chance. A tense silence filled the chamber. Nobles whispered, among themselves, some skeptical, others intrigued. The king studied Ethan, his sharp violet eyes searching for deceit. Ethan stood still, showing neither fear nor arrogance. He seemed honest. Finally, King Therion spoke. Very well. You may remain in the palace temporarily, but understand this. Any misstep, any sign of danger, and you will be removed immediately. You have one chance to prove your worth. Ethan nodded quickly. I understand. Thank you. Lyra felt a wave of relief. This was more than she had hoped for. Even if it was only temporary, it was a start. She knew, however, that winning the trust of the court would not be easy. Many nobles still looked at Ethan with suspicion, and some openly scowled at Lyra. Over the next few days, Ethan tried to adapt to palace life. It was difficult. The devices, the rituals, and the strange customs were overwhelming. But he showed determination and curiosity. He repaired a small malfunction in a royal security device, surprising even the most skeptical engineers. His hands were small but precise, and his mind was quick. Lyra watched him work, pride swelling in her chest. She had always felt powerless because of her disability, but here with Ethan she realized she could contribute. She helped him navigate the palace, taught him the basics of Zephoran culture, and found ways to incorporate his human ideas into small improvements around the palace. One afternoon, as the sun filtered through the crystal walls, a group of nobles approached. Princess Lyra, one said, his tone cold. Your human friend is impressive, but we fear he is a threat. How can we trust him? Lyra met his gaze calmly. Trust is earned. He has shown courage, intelligence, and honesty. He saved lives already. I ask you to give him the chance to do more. Watch him work. Judge him by what he does, not by old stories or fear. The nobles exchanged glances, hesitant but intrigued. Ethan nodded, quietly demonstrating his skills with a small device that controlled palace lights. The lights moved in patterns he created, showing efficiency and cleverness. The nobles murmured in surprise. Queen Selira, observing this, leaned closer to the king. Perhaps the humans are more than we believed. We must be cautious, but maybe they can be useful. King Therion remained silent, his eyes fixed on Ethan. He did not fully trust him yet, but he could not deny the human's abilities. That evening, Lyra and Ethan sat together in the hidden garden behind the palace. The stars sparkled above, peaceful and silent. Lyra leaned back against a stone wall, exhausted, but happy. You, brave, Ethan said softly. You risk everything. Lyra smiled faintly. I had to. I could not ignore you. Not after all I have seen. And I believe humans can change things. Maybe even help Zephora. Ethan nodded. I try. I help. Lyra looked at him, thinking of the challenges ahead. Her parents had allowed him to stay, but only for now. She knew the court would test him, and some nobles would try to sabotage his efforts. It would not be easy. But for the first time she felt hope. Not just for Ethan, but for herself, for her people, and for a future where humans and Xiferans could work together. She whispered quietly, "Tomorrow. We begin. We show them who you really are." Ethan nodded, determination in his eyes. Together they were ready to face the trials, the skepticism, and the fears of the court. And together, they would begin a journey that could change the fate of Xiphora forever. The stars above watched silently as a princess and a human began their bold path, one that would challenge tradition, defy prejudice, and ignite the spark of a new legacy, the human legacy. The palace of Xiphora was alive with whispers and cautious glances. Ethan had been allowed to stay, but the nobles were not convinced. To earn their trust, he would have to prove himself. And today the first trial began. King Therion called the council together in the main hall. "This human has shown promise," he said, his voice strong, "but intelligence and courage are not enough. He must face the trials of trust, the tests designed for all newcomers to the court. Only then will we know if he is worthy." Lyra stood close to Ethan, her hand brushing his arm for support. He looked nervous, but he straightened his back and nodded. "Ready," he said, his broken leg still healing but his spirit strong. The first trial was a test of problem-solving. A series of puzzles had been arranged in a large chamber, each one more difficult than the last. The rules were simple. Solve all puzzles within the time limit, using logic, creativity, and careful thinking. Many Xiferans would approach the task with brute force or overconfidence, but Ethan had learned differently. As the trial began, Ethan studied the puzzles. They involved patterns, moving pieces, and strange mechanisms he had never seen before. Lyra watched anxiously. She could see the human mind at work, turning the unfamiliar into opportunity. He moved pieces carefully, trying one solution, then another, until a pattern emerged. Slowly, surely, he solved the first puzzle. The next followed, and then the next. A murmur ran through the observing nobles. "He is clever," one whispered. Perhaps the princess is right, but not everyone was impressed. A rival noble, Lord Varys, scowled, muttering under his breath. "This is a trick. Wait, he will fail." Ethan ignored the whispers. His mind worked quickly, connecting ideas and testing them. By the end of the trial, every puzzle was solved. The chamber doors opened, and the council nodded in cautious approval. Lyra felt her chest swell with pride. He had done it. Not with strength or size, but with cleverness and focus, the very qualities humans possessed in abundance. The second trial tested physical courage. A simulated danger chamber was filled with shifting platforms, moving beams, and controlled hazards. Many Xiferans relied on their natural agility, their powerful legs, and their reflexes. Ethan, with his injured leg, had no such advantage. Yet he approached the challenge calmly, observing patterns, predicting movement, and choosing the safest path. Lyra held her breath as he navigated the obstacles. At one point, a platform began to fall. Ethan leapt, not far but perfectly timed, and landed safely. Gasps echoed through the hall. His movements were calculated, precise, and successful. He reached the end, exhausted, but triumphant. The nobles were silent for a moment, then slowly some began to clap. A few even smiled. Ethan had not only survived, but excelled. The final trial of the day tested judgment and leadership. A scenario was created where several Xiferans were trapped in a simulated disaster. The task was to save as many as possible using logic, speed, and collaboration. Many nobles hesitated, unsure how to approach the challenge. Ethan, however, moved with quiet confidence. He analyzed the situation, directed Xiferans to safe zones, and the palace of Xiphora buzzed with activity. Today was the final test for Ethan, a challenge unlike any he had faced before. King Therion had announced the Legacy Challenge, a planet-wide simulation designed to test leadership, courage, and collaboration. Every detail had been carefully arranged to push the participant to the limit. Lyra stood at Ethan's side, her heart pounding. She had seen him overcome puzzles, obstacles, and hazards, but this was the largest test yet. The challenge would not only judge Ethan, it would reflect on her as well. If he failed, the court might banish him forever and she could be blamed. "Are you ready?" she whispered. Ethan nodded. Ready. With you." The chamber doors opened, revealing a vast simulation room. Holographic landscapes stretched out, filled with cities, forests, and mountains. At the center, a warning sign blinked. Disaster imminent. Protect the civilians. The first scenario began. A simulated earthquake struck a crowded city. Buildings swayed, bridges collapsed, and holographic citizens screamed and ran in panic. Many Xiferans would have panicked, unsure where to act first. Ethan, however, assessed the situation calmly. He looked at the pathways, the placement of citizens, and the movement of obstacles. Lyra gasped as Ethan began directing holographic rescue teams. "Move them here, no, that way, yes," he called, pointing at virtual devices that controlled the simulation. Each action was precise, quick, and thoughtful. Even with his broken leg, he moved confidently within the command platform. Diwan. Nobles watching whispered among themselves. Some were impressed. Others tried to hide their surprise. The human, the princess's friend, was saving lives faster than most Xiferans could have. Just when it seemed Ethan had things under control, the simulation shifted. A massive fire erupted in a nearby district, cutting off one of the evacuation routes. Panic spread among the virtual citizens. Many would have faltered, but Ethan did not. He quickly rerouted the rescue efforts using alternative paths and prioritizing the most vulnerable. Lyra's heart raced. "You're amazing," she whispered, though no one heard. Hours passed. Ethan faced wave after wave of simulated disasters. Floods, building collapses, and even simulated attacks by rogue machines. Each time he adapted. Each time he solved the problems in ways that the Xiferans had not considered. His human creativity shone, combining logic, empathy, and innovation. Yet danger was never far away. Lord Varys and other skeptical nobles watched closely, trying to find a flaw in Ethan's approach. During one scenario, Varys whispered to the council, "Watch closely. He will fail. The human cannot understand Zephora's ways." But Ethan anticipated their skepticism. He adjusted, correcting small errors and making decisions that saved more lives in the simulation than anyone expected. By the end, all virtual, citizens were safe and the disasters had been managed with minimal damage. The chamber went silent. King Tharion, usually stoic, nodded slowly. "Remarkable," he said. "You have shown intelligence, courage, and leadership. You have adapted, overcome, and succeeded where many Zephorans would have struggled." Queen Celira's eyes softened. "I underestimated humans," she admitted quietly. "Perhaps they are not what the legends say." Lyra smiled, feeling a mixture of pride and relief. Ethan had proven himself beyond doubt. He had not only survived the legacy challenge, he had excelled. But even as celebration began, she knew there was one final obstacle: the court itself. "Lord." Varys stepped forward, frowning. "Success in a simulation is meaningless. A real threat could destroy this palace. How can we trust a human with our lives?" Ethan straightened. "I try. I learn. I help. I prove." His voice was calm but firm. Lyra stepped beside him. "He has proven more than you realize. He has shown courage, intelligence, and heart. Judge him by what he has done, not by fear." The council deliberated, the tension heavy in the hall. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, King Tharion raised his hand. "Enough. This human has passed the legacy challenge. He has demonstrated qualities we value: courage, intelligence, adaptability, and compassion. He has earned our trust and his place among us is recognized." Gasps and whispers filled the room. Some nobles bowed reluctantly. Others simply stared, stunned. Lyra felt tears prick her eyes. Ethan had done it. Together, they had faced impossible odds, and succeeded. That evening, in the palace garden, Lyra and Ethan walked side by side. The twin suns had set, leaving the sky painted in deep purples and golds. "You... amazing," Lyra said softly. "You saved many lives." Ethan shook his head. "We worked together." "You helped too," Lyra smiled. "Yes, together. And the court, they see it now. Humans, they may finally understand." Ethan nodded. "I try. Proud." They sat under the glowing trees, the air filled with quiet peace. Lyra reflected on the journey so far. She had once felt powerless because of her disability. She had thought she could never make a difference in the palace or in her family's eyes. But now, beside Ethan, she realized something profound. Strength was not just physical. Strength was courage, empathy, creativity, and the willingness to take risks for what was right. Lyra reached out and took Ethan's hand. "This is only the beginning," she said. "We have shown the court, but there is more to do. Humans, they can change more than just opinions. They can change worlds." Ethan's dark eyes met hers. Ready. Together." The stars above the palace shimmered silently, witnesses to a new bond forming between a princess and a human. The court had been impressed, yes, but the true challenge was just beginning. How to change hearts, traditions, and the future of Zephora itself. Lyra knew that the path ahead would not be easy. There would be skepticism, rivals, and danger. But she also knew one thing clearly. With Ethan by her side, she was no longer powerless. Together, they could face anything. Together, they could begin the true human legacy on Zephora. A legacy of courage, ingenuity, and hope. And so, under the quiet light of the twin moons, the princess and the human prepared for the final steps of their journey. Their trials had proven their abilities. Now, it was time to shape the future. The palace of Zephora was alive with tension and curiosity. News of Ethan's success in the Legacy Challenge had spread throughout the court. Some nobles were impressed, others skeptical, and a few were openly hostile. But today, Lyra knew, would determine the true place of humans in their world. She walked beside Ethan through the grand halls, her heart steady but racing with anticipation. "Today, we show them everything," she said quietly. Ethan nodded. "We ready." They entered the main chamber where the council waited. King Tharion sat at the center, his expression thoughtful. Queen Selira stood beside him, calm but watchful. The nobles filled the room, murmuring among themselves. The atmosphere was tense. Lyra took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Father, Mother, Honorable Council," she began, her voice clear. "You have seen what Ethan has done. You have watched him solve problems, lead and protect lives. But there is more. Humans are not only capable of surviving, they can improve, inspire, and guide. I ask you now not just to trust him, but to consider what humans can bring to Zephora." A hush fell over the chamber. Ethan stepped forward carefully, his dark eyes meeting the council's gaze. Human. I learn. I help. I share. I try. His words were simple, but they carried strength. King Tharion studied him closely. "Your actions have been remarkable," he said slowly. "Yet trust is more than skill. Trust is loyalty, courage, and the ability to honor our ways while showing new ideas. Can you do this consistently?" Ethan did not hesitate. "Yes, I loyal. I brave. I help Zephora. I not harm." Lyra's heart soared. She had never seen Ethan so confident. He stood small, fragile in appearance, yet his presence filled the room with a quiet power. One of the skeptical nobles, Lord Varys, spoke, up sharply. "And if he fails? If a human's mistake destroys our city or harms our people?" Lyra turned to him, eyes blazing. "Then we learn. If we refuse to see what humans can do, we stay trapped in fear and tradition. Ethan has shown us courage, intelligence, and compassion. We cannot ignore it, and we will not." Queen Selira studied her daughter, then Ethan. "Perhaps this is the change we need. Perhaps humans can teach us what we have forgotten. Creativity, adaptability, and courage not tied to size or strength." The king's eyes softened slightly. "It is true. He has passed every test, survived every challenge, and even inspired you, Lyra. You see qualities that we cannot ignore. Very well, let it be known. Ethan, you are welcome among us. You are recognized as an ally, a teacher, and a friend. And humans shall no longer be forbidden on Zyphora." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some nobles bowed reluctantly. Others whispered in astonishment. Lyra felt her chest swell with pride. Ethan had not only survived but had changed the hearts of the most powerful beings on her planet. Ethan's lips curved into a small smile. "Thank you," he said softly. "I'm proud." Lyra took his hand. "No, we did this together," she said. "You inspired me. You showed me courage and hope. And together, we begin a new legacy." The court slowly gathered around them, curiosity replacing fear. Nobles came forward, asking questions, observing Ethan's skills, and even listening as he explained simple ways humans solved problems. He demonstrated tools, strategies, and ideas that were entirely new to Zyphorans. Over the following days, the palace began to change. Devices repaired or improved by Ethan made life easier. Guards learned new ways to word count, 950,